On a pirate ship, they'll toss the captain overboard. Larian head of publishing tears into EA after Bioware layoffs waste institutional knowledge. And that's absolutely fair, because normally you want to try and at least nurture whatever talent you've got. Hey, if they've screwed up or messed up, as leadership, you can try and set that straight, set them right, whatever you can do. But the problem is people don't trust EA as well, and I mean, EA has always been known to kind of buy studios, close up shop fairly often, especially in the early 2010s. But I feel like there's a massive guillotine currently over the head of Bioware specifically. There was no way I wasn't going to talk about Dragon Age the Veilguard, its absolute failure to sell, and the fact that there is now looming dread over the head of Bioware as we speak. And it is certainly a developer that deserves to be shut down, but the thing is that its IPs are what I am more concerned about. While Dragon Age the Veilguard might absolutely be dead as a franchise, there are still IPs that they could make games out of. So let's actually talk about it. Starting off with Dragon Age the Veilguard director Corinne Bush, hired by Wizards of the Coast for Skeleton Key Studios after leaving Bioware. And God, I hate how every single piece of article, every news, message, tweet, whatever have you that you see, you will always have a picture of Tash somewhere there. And I cannot believe how ugly this character looks, but this character's face is everywhere. Oh my god, every single goddamn time. But anyway, basically just going down. So yes, Corinne Bush, she was the director, wasn't she? Yeah, she was the director. Left and ended up becoming she pretty much managed to fail upwards by getting a better role somewhere else after being immediately hired while Corinne Bush left. And that's probably because Corinne could see the message on the wall saying that people are going to be let go, because originally the game was projected to sell over 10 million copies and failed to break even 1.5 million, given that they actually lowered their projections from 10 million to 3 million. EA, that is. EA actually lowered their projections of 10 million copies to 3 million copies in an attempt to try and make the numbers look a little bit softer. But the game failed to sell 1.5 million because while they say they had 1.5 million players, that also happened to include the numbers of people who played the game through EA's subscription service, and that is easily BioWare's worst performing title of all time. And it really doesn't, that shouldn't surprise anyone in any way, shape or form, all things considered. So this is Corinne Bush, who, like I said, it feels like she's just completely failing upwards at this point, as she now is in part of the Skeleton Key development studio as a game director in Wizards of the Coast. And this is actually an image I think she tweeted, I can't remember exactly, but yeah. So she's left BioWare. And then Dragon Age the Veilguard fails to sell anywhere near the number of copies required to break even, let alone be part of the projections required by EA. So guess what happens? BioWare gets hit with layoffs as it shifts to the next Mass Effect. And the wording I think EA used was something along the lines of lessening the number of staff in order to try and keep a more focused vision and keeping things agile. So for those of you guys that don't know, agile methodology it can be used in many different ways. In the development cycle, it's used to create small parts of a overall project where you create an aspect, you then look at it, review it, and then move on to the next if you're happy. Or if you're not happy, you'll reiterate on the process of creating that particular element of the project until you are satisfied with it. it allows for constant improvement of sections and parts of a project that you're working on. So when you're looking at development, while I'm not too sure how it works from a development perspective, because I've only ever used it from a support side or IT support perspective, where like you have a process, does that process work? If not, how do you then improve upon it? How do you change things slowly as time goes on a bi-weekly basis or something along those lines, because you're reiterating on a specific timeline. It could be weekly, it could be bi-weekly, it just depends on the project that you're working on. But the thing is that it feels like that the terminology is being used very loosely, it feels like, because apparently more than half of Bioware has now been cut to have less than 100 employees after laying off around 24, okay, maybe getting rid of 24 people and having just barely less than 100 staff seems pretty insane in and of itself. So the changes followed Bioware's own studio update published this week, where General Manager Gary McKay said that the studio worked diligently over the past few months to match many of our colleagues with other teams at EA that had open roles. According to Bloomberg, dozens of staffers that had been loaned out to other teams. Okay, so pretty much some members of BioWare were sent to work in other parts of EA that may have had some openings that were required, that required their skills. So that was after the release of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Apparently learned this week that those shifts would in fact be permanent, so not even loaned out, but rather, I am getting you out of the studio, you're working somewhere else now. McKay said as a core team at the studio is developing the next Mass Effect game, which we got a teaser trailer for more than 4 years ago, and the changes will help BioWare become more agile focused studio. There you go, that's where the terminology came from. So it wasn't necessarily from EA, it was actually from BioWare's own general manager Gary McKay that said that. Interesting. With that being said, however, Mass Effect, I have actually not played any of the Mass Effect games, but I know people love them, and I do want to actually play through the Legendary Edition, because I do actually have a copy sitting upstairs right now for me to kind of sit down and play through the 3 games. That being said, however, keeping in mind that those games came out well over 10 years ago, and so the teams that currently exist in BioWare are not the same teams that made those Mass Effect games. So I am actually incredibly worried for fans of Mass Effect, because I'm pretty damn sure that whatever game you guys are going to be getting is not going to be anything like the Mass Effect that you once had. And Mass Effect Andromeda was largely panned because people didn't like it. The faces, even I remember what the faces of characters look like, where they tried to pull off Ryder's faces to look, so Shepard was the main character of the original Mass Effect trilogy, going from Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, but then with Andromeda you instead have Ryder, and Ryder's facial expressions were like constantly like eyes open, like staring off into the distance type of thing. Holy crap. And then I think there was a line to some extent saying, "Oh, don't mind me, my eyes are tired." And I'm like, dog, if your eyes are tired, I don't think you would be staring like a goddamn owl at the NPC that you're talking to. I'm just saying. But yeah, so there were some buggy, glitchy messes that were going on, and in fact was deemed a lesser than product compared to the original Mass Effect trilogy. Granted, people had issues with the Mass Effect 3 ending being like, what flavor of Neapolitan ice cream you got? But, you know, being one of 3 ways, and the ending just had like a hue of one very specific color. So you'd either have a red hue or a blue hue or a green hue over the ending for whatever reason. But, you know, it definitely didn't feel like your choices mattered that much, despite how epic the story across those 3 games seemingly was. So Andromeda felt like a massive failure in comparison. And I can't imagine what, you know, BioWare is going to do here, because it definitely feels they're on the chopping block, and I don't think that the next Mass Effect is even going to save them, which then leaves us with this Game Rant article talking about how Mass Effect 5 is still on track following the layoffs at BioWare. BioWare executive producer Michael Gamble assured fans that Mass Effect 5 is still happening despite recent layoffs, and whether or not that's for better or for worse, Who the hell knows? The long-awaited title is currently in pre-production, so we won't see it for at least a few years, if nothing else. And of course, a release window has not been announced because, like I said, if they're currently in pre-production, we probably will not see the game for at least the next couple of years. Which is insane to think about, given that EA has had to shed a lot of weight, given that they also lost a lot of stock value, not just because of Veilguard significantly missing expectations, but also EAFC not doing particularly well in the 2025 fiscal year either. God, I can't imagine what Bioware is going to do. I feel like they're certainly on the chopping block, and currently EA's big game that they're working on right now is going to be Battlefield, because of all of the franchises that EA owns that's not sports related, of all of the franchises that they have under their belt that have a lot of cachet behind it that would sell numbers, has got to be Battlefield. I can't see it being anything else, because I wish I could see more stuff like Dead Space. Unfortunately, Visceral Games was shut down after the failure of Dead Space 3 and stuff like that. I feel like EA is going back to the whole idea of what Unichronic Arts used to be. Unichronic Arts is a name that was given to EA after from Jim Sterling, who absolutely tore into EA after EA kept constantly buying studios and selling them off or closing them down after those games didn't do particularly well. It just really is kind of insane to see where everything falls, and like I said, it's only a matter of time before we even see what the next Mass Effect is going to be. Is it going to be a Mass Effect 5? Because if we consider Andromeda to be like Mass Effect 4, which I don't think a lot of people will, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Mass Effect some sort of subtitle, because they don't want to associate whatever game they're going to be releasing alongside 1, 2, 3, which were considered to be incredibly good games. I don't know what's going to be in the future of BioWare, and I'm not looking forward to seeing if they're going to shut down, because I want to see another, I don't know, Jade Empire. Though granted, I think maybe Xbox owns the likes to Jade Empire, so I could be completely wrong about that. But that's probably the one thing I want to see most from BioWare, just because I don't really have the love for Mass Effect as other people do, because like I said, I haven't even played Mass Effect, so I really wouldn't be able to tell you. But with all that being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.